This class is always about public speaking and leadership, teaching you techniques, but also trying to help you with your leadership skills. Some years I have a real hard time figuring out what the topic's going to be. Unfortunately, this year I didn't. When that young man walked into that church in Charleston a few months ago and killed those 9 people, I knew that was what I was going to be talking about. And I've thought about it almost every day since. We all know that young man was white and those people were black. And as is typical when a lot of these incidents happen, and you got to think now in America, there's a multi-death incident of gun violence every day in this country. We see these big ones on the news, but there's a multi-death incidents every day. So the leaders of the community around there say, oh, this is just an isolated incident. They want it to go away, as most of the time they do. And then what happened next? When a very few days after that, 6 predominantly black churches were burned. So it wasn't an isolated incident, part of a larger problem. Then a few days later, I heard one of the black leaders say, nothing much is ever going to get done about this if black folks are the only people crying foul. More white people are going to have to stand up and talk about it. And I remember at that very minute, knowing I was going to make this presentation, looking down my hands and going, I'm white, and I'm going to talk about it. Here we are, 150 years after the Civil War, 50 years after the Civil Rights Movement, and we still have people hating and killing people in this country for no other reason than the color of their skin. It makes me sick, and it makes me sad. Second line of the Declaration of Independence, the people who founded this country, says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Period. No discussion. And a statement. That's the way it is. Humankind, every one of us, created equal. And I thought real hard ever since that day at an analogy to get this point across to you. And I came up with these 3 apples. Green, red, and they call that one golden delicious. Each have a core. They each are virtually identical underneath the outer covering. If you peel away the outer covering completely from these 3 apples, you can't tell them apart. The very same thing is true of human beings. We're all the same. We all have the same heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, core. You can't figure out whether or not you like this apple unless you take a bite, you taste it, you engage it. Why on earth are we judging people before we engage them? You gotta talk to people one-on-one. Engage them, find out their story. Don't assume anything. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, one of the greatest speeches in American history. There's one line in there that's always stuck out for me. I have a dream that one day my 4 little children will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if all men are created equal, all people are created equal, that shouldn't be a dream, that should be the rule. Now look back at these apples a minute. As I've lived my life, one of the things I've observed is most of the labels that we put on ourselves, other people put on us, they're not there to create unity for a positive reason. They're often put there to create division, to try and separate peoples, to try and cause ill will. So let's look for a minute at these apples and think about them. Consider them as white, black, brown, Asian, Indian, Native American, Syrian, French, British, Republican, Democrat, liberal, gay, straight, transgender, dreadlocked, piercings, tattoos. For the life of me, there's not a single label that I just named for you that changes the core of every human being or those apples. They're just labels. I'm a realtor. I told you earlier, I sell houses. I help people buy and sell houses. When I started doing this, I realized that just about every group that I named when I was talking about labels and what the apples could be, I've helped someone from that group buy or sell a house. I'm very proud of that. And what I realized is we need a new rule, a rule I call the 99+% rule. And it goes like this: 99+% of the people, of any label you can give to them, are just looking for a way to make a decent living and a safe place to live for them and their family. Right? And the converse is almost more important. Less than 1% of the people, of any group, of any label you can imagine, really are bad people and might want to do you harm. Let's think about it for a minute, in terms of the apples, in terms of the 99+%. 99+% of the Syrian refugees that we're hearing about all in the news just want a safe place to live and work. 99+% of the people that label themselves conservatives just want a safe place to live and work. 99+% of the gay people just want a safe place to live and work. 99+% of the legal and illegal immigrants to this country or any other just want a safe place to work. That's why they're coming. And if you want to pick on immigrants, I challenge any of you who is not 100% Native American. We're all immigrants, guys. We all came here. I know of one of my 4 ancestors that was documented. The rest were undocumented aliens. And you know, there were some people who came over on those boats with my relatives that did bad crimes, that did stupid things. But we didn't have 1,000 TV channels and 1 million internet sites to reinforce every bad thing that was done by that less than 1% of the group that I happen to be labeled with. The engagement of people that are different from you on the surface becomes the challenge for you as people who expect to be leaders. You've got to have the courage to say, you and I come from a different background. Tell me about it. Let's get back to that young man who walked into that church in Charleston. He wasn't sick. He wasn't mentally ill. He wasn't bad. He was poisoned. He was poisoned. I don't know whether it was his family, his community, internet sites, whatever it was. He was poisoned. And if you think about a lot of these incidents of mass shooting violence, the man out in California a few weeks ago was poisoned by internet sites. The young man who shot up the place in Colorado, the Planned Parenthood, poisoned by the ridiculous rhetoric out there. And a lot of these cops that have done a lot of bad things to people that we've been hearing about around the country, somewhere down the line, they got a dose of poison. And you know, if you think about it, it's amazing how many times these shooters that you hear about are somewhere described as loners. You know another term for a loner is someone who's disengaged. And I want you to think for a minute. If you're the only person like you in your school, your community, your life, and you go to school and you out in the community for months and weeks at a time, and nobody hardly ever talks to you because you're different, might you end up on the internet? Might somebody who engages you cause you to go off in a very bad direction. So the challenge for you guys as leaders, you really want to be leaders, you got to engage that person who's different. Engage that person who's quiet. Engage that person by saying, you and I look like we have a different experience in life. Tell me about it. And listen. And I believe we can stop some of this and we can change some of this. Imagine, just for a few minutes, a world where every single individual is only judged by the content of their character. And then go out and do something about it. And when you see somebody or you hear somebody who is not treating people right, who is speaking with prejudice and bigotry, stand up. And I'll close with some words from John Lennon. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join me and the world will be as one. Thank you.